Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live and I'm Cyril Stover. Sorry, we're a few minutes behind schedule, but tonight, academic unions and education development. Now, strikes by academic staff of universities have continued to take a toll on the nation's tertiary education system. With the resort to the courts and renewed talks being led by Speaker of the House of Representatives, the question on the lips of many Nigerians is, will this mark an end to the crisis? Of note is the registration of two new unions, Kunwa and Namdas. Now, these are some of the issues we'll be talking about tonight with our panel of guests. But first, let's get to see this report by Abdullahi Musa Suleja.
Legitimate bodies formed to draw the attention of their employers on silent issues that touch on the welfare of members and improvement in the learning environment, which, when respected by the authority, translates to the overall interest of all. Academic unions at the tertiary level have, to a great extent, helped in shaping and bringing about some level of development in those institutions and uplifting the living standard of members through healthy engagement. The engagement comes in different ways. Sometimes, the two parties disagree to agree, and in other cases, a long-drawn battle with disagreements.
You will make some demands as unions. Government will tell you what you can do, and then you push, and then you get to a middle ground.
And when disagreements are prolonged through industrial action, its effects are devastating to the education sector.
It's not about who is right or wrong, but about the students, the vulnerable student. If this continues, and with the insecurity in the country, the poverty in the country, the unthinkable will happen. And when we come to that, nobody can stop it.
By so doing, the unions have the power to make or mar the educational sector. To address this situation, the federal government decided to put in place a measure that will stem the tide of prolonged disagreement in the future.
Our guide has been the directive of Mr. President Muhammad Buhari that while the union should be persuaded to return to work, government should not repeat the past mistake of accepting to sign an agreement that will be unimplementable. Government should not, in the guise of observing current crisis, cease potential disruptions.
They are not a legal union of workers with rights and privileges. And there is no discussion that will take place in any university academic environment for academic workers, of which there are members that will not involve them.
But how can registration of two academic unions, National Association of Medical and Dental Academics (NAMDA) and the Congress of Nigerian University Academics (CONUA) sanitize the system?
We believe that the process I'm told has been going on for a while. I'm aware some applied 3-5 years ago, some 6 years ago. So if you have been given the opportunities, we all believe that. I hope we all work together towards one purpose, to improve the education sector in this country. That is the key element we should all focus on. How do we prepare future generations for the challenges that are going to meet in the future and for the opportunities that exist so that they can exploit them for the advantage of our country?
Registration of these two unions brings to 6 the number of unions in the university system. As the saying goes, and as Nigerians await the new unions to make a positive impact in the university system, hopes are high that the long days of inactivity in the Nigerian public universities will soon become a bad dream, quickly to be erased in the memories of students and parents. Abdullahi Musa Suleja.
All right, that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let's introduce our guests to you. We'd like to welcome to this program Dr. Aminu Abdullahi Isiaku, who is a senior lecturer in the Department of Geology, Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. And, he is chairman of the Congress of University Academics, Kodwa, ABU Zaria. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much, Cyril, for having me today.
Right. Let me also welcome to this program Professor Nuhu Yakub, former Vice Chancellor, University of Abuja and Sokoto State University. Prof, thanks for being with us tonight. Okay, we'll also be joined later by Professor Sebastian Uremadu, Professor of Banking and Finance, Michael Okpara University, Umudike, Abia State. Both gentlemen will join us much later on the program. Thanks for being with us. And as we always say, this program at some point in time is interactive. And so you can get to join in the discussion at a later time. At that time, we'll refresh your memory, we'll remind you of the procedure. But for now, let's begin to talk about the issues about academic unions and the development of education in Nigeria. And let's start off with you, Dr. Aminu Abdullahi Isiaku. Well, you're from Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, and we can easily ask, for the purposes of clarity, a lot of Nigerians had expected that, academic activities would resume. But from all reports coming in, ASU would still be meeting to determine or perhaps vote on calling up the strike as advised by the Court of Appeal. But the bottom line is still no academic activities are going on, are there?
Thank you very much, Cyril, for having me again today on NTA Tuesday Live. The fact that academic activities are yet to resume in Nigerian universities is something that has to do for us in Konwa. It's something that has to do with university management. Because our union is not involved in this in any way, in the strike, in the negotiation, in the call back to work. So for us, we have been ready to work. We have not been on strike. If at any point in time university management open the gates, open the classrooms and invite students back, we are ready to work. So
what you're saying now is members of KONWA, because shortly after your registration, officials of KONWA issued a statement asking all its members to get ready to start work. Okay, so what you're saying now is you cannot engage in any academic activities because the universities are not open.
Yeah, and that is, like I told you before, it has something to do with the management's decision. So if management opens the universities, we will teach students if students are back. From the way this has already started, you know that it is eventually going to lead to something like this, because the strike has outlived its usefulness as far as Nigerians are concerned, particularly Nigerian students. The schools have been shut down for a long time, and because before our own registration, the only union representing academic staff on the negotiation table is ASU. So that is why all this focus is on ASU. But I can tell you, ever since after our registration and our recognition by the Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment, if there are lots of interest that has been expressed by many ASU members that have been leaving ASU to join KONWA. This has been happening since that time, and very soon you will hear the the names of those universities that will be joining KUNWA very, very soon.
Okay, let's take you back a little bit. You've just been registered as a legal union in the university
Absolutely.
system right now. But tell me, how did this start up? And when did you conceive this idea? It's assumed that all KUNWA members for now used to be members of ASU, since that was the only...
Yes.
Right. So
Yes.
at what time did you conceive this idea of pulling out of ASU and requesting for a new... Let's go back a bit.
It's an exercise, it's a complete exercise of our own fundamental rights as Nigerians, as guaranteed by Section 40, I think, I'm not a lawyer, of the Nigerian Constitution as amended. That guarantees freedom of assembly, freedom of association, freedom to form trade unions. So, like you have said, before now, every academic lecturer automatically is assumed to be a member of ASU. The moment you have your employment letter signed up, you are assumed to be a member of ASU. And that has been the trend. But over time, Nigerian lecturers have been shortchanged by ASU and ASU leadership in general, in such a way that many of the decisions that ASU do take does not reflect the entire interest of Nigerian universities, academics. So at a point in time, everything requires something to start it up. Incidents happen at Obafemi Awolowo University, Ife, where a large number of ASU members were, if you like, dismissed completely from the union, and they felt that there has not been any union since then to represent their interest. So they recruit, and they approached the only office that is saddled with the responsibility of registering trade unions, which is the office of the registrar of trade unions in the domicile in the Ministry of Labour and Employment. They put in the application, and since 2018 we have been following that development, and they now realize that whatever that they have been suffering at OAU Ife, many other lecturers have been suffering, and they have been left out in the cold by ASU and many other universities in Nigeria. So that has been very easy to get the attention of people like that to join in the struggle to form KUNWA. And since 2018, we have been pursuing the registration vigorously at the ministry, and thankfully we got it last week.
Right. I need to ask you this. You all university lecturers.
Yes.
ASU has made clear certain demands.
Yeah.
Is it that members of KUNWA do not believe or do not accept those requests or the conditions that ASU has put out? We hear the things about welfare of lecturers. Is it that KUNWA members are not interested in their own welfare?
Not at all.
We hear about infrastructure in the universities.
Yes.
Is it that KUNWA members do not believe in having improved infrastructure in the university? So
in reality we do. Now, this is a very good question, and thank you for this opportunity for me to clear these issues. The issues that ASU has been fighting for mainly include the deployment of IPPIS for Nigerian universities and revitalization funding to develop the infrastructure in the universities, and also salary increase, because for a while now the salaries of Nigerian lecturers have not been reviewed upward. And also you have the issue of university autonomy that they have been clamoring for. Now, if you look at and then end academic allowances, all these issues also CONWA as a union do subscribe to them. We love to see more funding in the system because we will benefit from it as well. Nigerian students will benefit from it, the system will benefit. And we love to see increased allowances because we also believe that the wages of Nigerian lecturers is very low if you compare it with other professions in the country. And generally, if you look at this, it's an elite struggle taking place in the country now between the educated elites in the university, represented by Nigerian university lecturers, that's the teaching class if you like, and then the ruling class. Those are the people that have graduated in universities, taught by lecturers, and have now found themselves in positions of authority. And the lecturers really feel that their own, if you like, services are not being appreciated as much as it should be. So that is why all this struggle is now taking place. We lecturers are now looking for more wages because we deserve it. So all these issues that are on the table for negotiation that ASU has brought and have gone on strike several times since 2009 of recent, because of, we also believe in them. The departure that we have with ASU is the approach. The critical question for an academic is, how do you get your rights and entitlement without destroying the system? This is a very difficult question, and ASU has been finding it difficult to answer it correctly. So the approach has been, we can use students as a bait to get what we want from government. If the ruling class, as they call them, people in government, refuse to give us what we want, we sink the system. So CONWA look at this as a very destructive way of approaching the entire thing. And academic allowances, yes, we need our own allowances to be paid. IPPIS, the position of CONWA is that we are not in a position to dictate to the federal government, that is our employer, over which software to pay us, how to pay us, mode of payment. We really do not care about that, so long as we are paid the right wages, and so long as our peculiarities in the academic system is being captured. So all the argument by ASU is that the IPPIS is not taking care of the many peculiarities in the system that include lecturers going on visits to other universities, that include sabbatical, that also include the power of university management to employ staff as the need arise. Now, that's centralization of payments in Abuja, in the Office of Accountant General, is actually causing a lot of problems with the way the universities are being used to run. And of particular importance is what the government has said when they deployed IPPIs. They said they deployed IPPIs to check payroll corruption. Government believe there is a lot of issues with the payroll in the universities. Before, government used to give grants to universities, and then the university bursaries now pay salaries. If a lecturer retires, if a lecturer dies, if a lecturer is dismissed, all these figures do not vary, from the source. So the rest of the money, as government said, are not being accounted for. So that is why they want to deploy IPPIs to centralize everything. But unfortunately, the IPPIs is not an effective tool, because it is actually blocking many of these importance, but it is doing one excellent job that ASU do not like. This IPPIs is checking the multiplicity of lecturers working in different places. This is number one. Okay. So we do not really believe that we as employees will dictate to government how to pay us. That is our complete departure as far as IPPIs is concerned. But also, we have realized that the system is not effective, but we are ready to work with the government to make it work. Not to say let's shut down the universities unless this mode of payment is exchanged with the one that ASU has developed, which is the UTAS.
All right, we'll return to these issues, but let me go back once again and reintroduce our other guests. Professor Nuhu Yakub, a former Vice Chancellor of the University of Abuja and also the Sokoto State University. Professor Nuhu Yakub, glad that you could find time to join us tonight on this discussion. Okay. All right, we'll still get that right. And also we have Professor Sebastian Uremadu, a professor of banking and finance, Michael Okpara University, Umudike, Abia State. I should mention that he's currently on sabbatical at the Akwa Ibom State University, Uyo. Thanks for being with us tonight. All right. At this point, we'll take one of a number of reports that we have on tonight's program. This one is by Shola Wahid from Ibadan.
Academic unions in Nigerian universities are formed to improve education standards and promote university autonomy, as well as seek improved funding for universities. Over the years, frequent disruption of academic calendar due to ASU strikes over non-implementation of agreements reached with federal government is not only responsible for the low ranking of Nigerian universities, but a source of concern to students who have to stay for extended duration for their course of study, and their parents and guardians who equally bear the brunt financially. But what does this portend for educational development of the country?
The federal government just created the CONIA as another union, as a parallel union to ASU, based on the ASU's rigid policy that they want to fight at all costs, irrespective of whoever is God. And this thing has created a lot of problem for the country. So by creating this particular union, it will give a leveling ground for other people to ventilate their own idea, and it will soften the collapse of the Nigerian university as we are experiencing now.
The role of academic union is very, very important, and it's very much. So we can just highlight one is that it makes them to deliver whatever they want to teach the students in a very good way. It also assists them in arriving in a good curriculum.
As a parent, a student that is supposed to resume in January, we have paid for the accommodation in that January that's supposed to run for 1 year. The ASU is on strike. Private hostel continue to running. In a couple of months time now, that rent will expire. That is just on the one part.
How the journey of 4 years has actually turned to a journey of like 6 years and 7 years. And you know what that means? That means that when they are meant to get out of school, they won't get out. So by the time they come out, the employers will start demanding for a particular age.
Federal government and the entire stakeholders should sit down and address this issue. Even if they are going to think outside the box, you don't have to say there is no money, there is no money. Look, there are ways that this problem can be resolved if we really mean business. Unfortunately, we are approaching the election period. Our children are at home doing nothing.
In the meantime, stakeholders and other well-meaning Nigerians are urged to prevail over the ASU federal government face-off in the interest of the students, parents, and the country at large.
All right, now just joining us at this point in time is another, I guess, Senator Ita Enang, OFR, the Military's advisor to the President on National Assembly, Senate, and Niger Delta, and of course his counsel to the federal government on the academic union cases. Senator Ita Enang, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Quickly, congratulations on being conferred with the National Honor of Officer of the Order of the Federal Republic.
Thank you very much, and thanks to Mr. President, and thanks to Nigerians.
All right. So, The business why we're here today is with the academic unions and development in Nigeria's education, tertiary education sector, and of course the lingering ASU strike, which went to court, first to the National Industrial Court, and then ASU appealed. And of course, with the decision of the appeal court that ASU should go back, comply, and then seek leave to challenge. Now, all of that, Nigerians had expected that academic activities would have resumed at the end of the holidays, but that has not happened. You've cancelled to the federal government and the academic union cases. Can you tell us the latest on the court's decision now?
Well, the court decision at the Court of Appeal, but first at the National Industrial Court, at the refusal persistent by the academic staff union to call off the strike, the Honourable Minister Chris Ngige, the Minister of Labour and Employment, made a referral under Section 17 and 18 of the Trade Union Act, the issue being a question relating to essential services. He made a referral to the National Industrial Court as authorized by the Act, asking and first, after making the referral, the questions he asked in the referral is whether the strike can continue or should be allowed to continue being an essential, the teaching service in the universities and so on being an essential service. The other one was that whether it is right for the academic staff union being employees of the federal government as an employer to determine, to say the mode in which they should be paid salaries not by IPPIS, whether it is right for them to determine and say, look, it must be by the method they want, that is what they call UTAS or something, and any other means. And again, he asked whether the reasons that are given by the academic staff union to go on strike are tenable. The third reason is that the academic staff union are asking is that the executive, the federal government, should intervene and persuade the National Assembly to either pass a law or bring pressure on the National Universities Commission to stop recognizing or creating more universities by the state government. That is, to interfere or to intervene in bills in the legislature. And the question that we're asking the court to determine whether the executive is bound and whether it is an issue for which the academic staff union can proceed on strike to compel their employers to interfere and intervene in the legislature or for the legislature to pass a legislation. That's number one. Number two, okay, that's the question we're asking. Then the other question is whether, in view of Section 43 of the Trade Disputes Act, which says that where the workers withdraw their services and are on strike, they shall not be paid during the period of the strike. And it also says that if the employer voluntarily locks out the employee, they shall be paid. Those are the questions we took to the court. Now, the questions are still pending, so we won't join to conclusion. But we asked for interim injunction. The court granted interim injunction, and that we should proceed. The academic staff union now decided to go on appeal against the order. And proceeding on appeal, the Court of Appeal heard them. We filed and exchanged the pleadings. We filed and exchanged argument by both parties. And the court fixed a date for arguments. It was accelerated and heard. And we argued, they argued and we replied. And the court ruled that the academic staff union are given leave to appeal against the judgment, because it will not be appropriate to shut them out of being heard on appeal. But that in law, for you to be heard or to be heard on appeal, either by or granted leave, either by the trial court or by the appellate court, you must come with clean hands. And the clean hands you have to come with is that you must first obey the judgment or the interlocutory order of any order of the trial court before you can be granted leave. And the court, on the first day of on the day of the trial, and even the second day, said that counsel should go and try and see the extent to which they can cause themselves to come together and arrive at something so that schools can resume. And the court made it clear that they're all living in society, and that it is not only the interest of the workers of the academic staff union that are in issue, that the interest of the students is also in issue. And although it has not been expressly brought before them as an issue, but it has been raised in the course of argument, and that they are bound to listen. Therefore, in conclusion, the court ruled that leave, conditional leave, is granted to the academic staff union to appeal the judgment. And the condition is that they should call off the strike and return to work. And the court expressly said that if after 7 days the academic staff union do not return to work, then the leave to appeal lapses on its own, and they don't have any, or they won't have any right again in respect of that application for. So that is where we are. So we're expecting, there has been conflicting situations we've had with the strike called off or the strike has not been called off, but the Court of Appeal has directed that the judgment of the lower court must be obeyed, and that a court order is valid and subsisting until set aside either by the trial court or the appellate court. That's where we are.
All right, I might just mention here that in putting this program together, we also extended invitations to the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, and they are not here today, which supposes that they turned down that invitation. Well, I wonder if we can get back to Professor Nuhu Yakub now. Yes, we can. Well, thanks for being with us once again. We hope this time we'll fix this glitch and we can hear you loud and clear, because we would really want to get your opinion on what's been going on and with academic unions and development of education. In this case, the lingering strike and where we are today. What are your views, Prof?
I'm sorry that you will have had this technical hitch, because I would have loved to hear and listen to what other contributors, have been saying. But that is by the side for the time being. But the point is, I think we need to be very clear about one thing, which is that we cannot allow this country to be turned into a dictatorship. The right of workers to go on strike is enshrined either in the Constitution or the Trade Act. And government should as much as possible try to also look at look at it very closely and allow people to go on strike. And I also want to stress the point that, as the president has been saying all along, which is that this strike wouldn't need to go beyond one or 2 days for the solution. And what this means is that, if there was commitment on the part of government, the strike, this elongated strike would have been unnecessary. And we have to get it very clear. I don't think it is actually in the interest of academic staff to abandon their teaching, abandon their research, and other community work they will have to carry out to be considered to be academics, and stay at home also for close to 7 to 8 months. And somebody will have been now talking as if it is a decision of a section of the academics community in this country to go drive the students to go back home, and they also will have been rendered useless in terms of carrying out their basic activities. So I think we have to approach this issue from that perspective. Let government also take its responsibility very seriously. In fact, I am now retired as a matter of fact, but the fact of the matter has to be stated very clearly. This is an agreement reached since 2009. And this was 2009. By 2009, we had, the government of Yaradua. It was succeeded by the government of Jonathan. And that was eventually succeeded by the current government. And for 7 years, government does not even think that this thing must be looked into. What I think, should have been the responsible way of handling this thing is for government to call, ASU members are Nigerians. I mean, again, I think there is also this, impression created that, ASU members are unpatriotic. No, that is not the case. That is not the case. I mean, if you are looking for, people who subscribe to the ethos of democracy, you can get it in ASU. That is one. If you are looking for people who are also very democratic, the patriotic, you can also get them in ASU. As a matter of fact, when it was the time, during the Jonathan's regime, the current minister was one who even wrote an article standing by, the ASU in their strike against the government, then not fulfilling the promise that government has made to the university system, not just to individuals. In fact, the way it is even being conceived, as if it is, the actual leadership is very, the actual leadership, is insincere. The member, the leadership is insincere. The bulk of the membership of the union, they are also insincere, and that is why they have prolonged this strike unnecessarily. I think that if we try to look at education system broadly and generally in this country, we need to begin to look at what has happened to the education sector at the primary level. We need to also look at what has happened to education sector in the secondary level, and that is what I think as leadership all through, from the Jonathan era, from Yaradua era to now, trying to avoid repeating itself at the tertiary level. I think this is what is my perspective about the unnecessarily prolonged strike that has taken place this period of time.
And let's go over to Professor Sebastian Uremadu, who's a professor of banking and finance, and let's hear your own views. As we introduced you earlier, Professor Uremadu is currently on sabbatical at the Akwa Ibom State University, Uyo. In his earlier comments, Dr. Aminu Abdullahi Isiaku mentioned the question of going on sabbatical to other universities as one of those issues in contention. So let's hear you, Professor Uremadu.
Thank you, Cyril Stover, and I'm here before my senior colleague, my former Vice Chancellor, Professor Nuhu Menza. He has said it all, and as we used to say in ASU, I concur with most of what he has said. In relation to what you have just referred to, sabbatical leave is a very essential aspect of the academic life. I've been in Akwa Ibom Akusu State University for 6 months. I'm in the 7th month. And I know the impact I have made. I know the interactions even at Senate level, at departmental level, at faculty level. All the experience of past years are brought to bear there. So, going on sabbatical is a refreshing issue to an academic, and it should be taken very seriously. It is only people, those who have not been in the system and that are not in the system, that can push that aside. It is one of the contents, the very issue in contest that ASU is pushing for, that was removed by the IPs. So sabbatical leave for an academic staff is very, very important and very refreshing. It is a period of cross-fertilization of idea. You go to another university and you bring all that you have, and you also collect what you feel. Academic, learning, just as my professor has said, my former vice chancellor, education is very, very important. And I used to use the Civil War days, the importance of pantry, to illustrate to my students when I want to orient them to get interested into study. During the Civil War in the Southeast, every part of the pantry, right from the root to the palm leaves and everything, is important, very, very useful. And a well-educated person is humble. Is humble, he relates well, just as my visit has said. He is very patriotic. If you look and you are searching for people who are patriotic in this country, it is the educated people. It is when people that do not understand are in positions of authority, they will not understand. How on earth could one who valued universities into what that means is that you have actually talked up anyone on the
Giving out signals on Professor Remadu there. We'll try to fix that again. But at this point in time, we have another report, this time from Maiduguri. Let's see this.
It is now 8 months since the members of Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, embarked on strike following inability of federal government to meet their demands. This has halted academic activities in federal and most state universities across the country, significantly affecting socio-economic activities for millions of people within and around the campuses, as parents, students and other stakeholders were hoping that the strike be called off soon. The federal government took another step to register Konwa and NAMDA while the stalemate with ASU persists. This development, according to some stakeholders in the academia, is a wrong move at the wrong time, as such does not pose a headway out of the industrial action by ASU.
The only way to solve the crisis at hand is to sit down, iron out whatever the differences. Let me reiterate, creating new unions may not solve the problem.
When two elephants are fighting, the grass is affected and they suffer the most. So in this situation, we the students are really suffering.
How long will you stay in the government to provide for what they want if you create another faction of the ASU? When you are creating more, it is not to the betterment of the student.
Nigerian Labour Congress in Borno State also aligned with national leadership of the NLC to condemn the registration of new unions, while there already exists a body with such function, citing that it violates Section 3, Subsection 2 and Section 5, Subsection 4 of the Trade Union Act Cap 2004 and other laws certified by the Supreme and Appeal Courts respectively.
It's a matter of negotiation, and if this negotiation fails, there are other means of addressing the issue. But for you to create an association within the union just to have a breakthrough, I think is totally unacceptable by the NLC.
While the registration of Konwa and NAMDA by the federal government at this point in time continues to generate mixed feelings among stakeholders, the protracted impasse remains unresolved to date.
Back in the studio, let's just clarify one or two issues. Senator Tainan Zeloria here, and the question of registration of two new unions, Konwa and NAMDA. The government has cited provisions of the law to say that it's well within its purview to do that. Now there have been counter claims to say, no, you cannot register a union if one already exists in that place. What's the position of the law on this?
Yeah, I wish I'll have time to, I will answer that. But I wish I had time to raise the latest issues that ASU is saying is its problem. before I answer that, or I take this one first?
Well, just okay, so we don't lose sight of this just quickly.
Okay,
and then we can...
please, then let the public understand that the issue that ASU is now holding on to the strike are just this one they have written, what they call irreducible minimum. And when the Court of Appeal asked us to go and try to do an out-of-court settlement before we come back the following day, if we don't, that they will hear us. We counsel were to exchange what they went. That ASU forwarded this to the federal government legal team. It said what their demand as immediate signing of the June 22 draft agreement with adjustment to the salary component. However, the salary component should not be lower than what is already being paid by some universities. 2. Immediate release of test result of payment platform for evaluation of technical teams and observers with a view to. 3. Immediate release of 60 billion naira being 50% of revitalization fund. Then immediate release of 50 billion naira to complete the payment of arrears of earned academic allowance. Then the release of government white paper on the 2021 visitation panels report to federal universities. And finally, intervention on the draft bill empowering National University Commission to curb proliferation of universities, especially state by state governors. Then payment of withheld salaries of university academics since March. These are the issues. This is what they sent to us on the 6th of October. Today is 11th of October. So just to let you know that this issue is as fresh as anything is as fresh as anything. They sent it to us on the 6th, which is the date we were to report whether we've arrived at anything, which is also the way they stood even before the injunction was granted. And will we have time? I'm going to respond to your question. When you look at all these issues, there are not issues that are matters within the ambit of the employee to demand, because the academic staff unions, with the greatest respect, we love and we respect them. They are employees of the respective universities, and so you don't, and the respective universities are their employers, and by extension the federal government. The duty of the staff, of an employer, of an employee, is to get it's right, and it is to get your salary. You don't determine how you will be paid. The law does not allow you to get into the internal management of the organization. I had already addressed the question of that is not the responsibility of the federal government to go and interfere in the functions of the legislature when a bill is pending before them. That is not a matter for strike. Then when you come and talk about the revitalization, the money you are looking for, the federal government had released about 130 billion or so, to about 130 or 100 and so, remaining about 70 billion. I wish I'm correct. And the federal government is saying, retire the one we have given to you, so that we know what you have done with it, and before we can give you the balance. And they say no. There is no situation in the world, in anywhere in the world, where if you are entitled to money and the federal government or the owner of an institution gives you money and you don't retire, and it tells you, let me see what you did. Others are complaining that they haven't been paid. The people are let me know those who paid so that I know what to give to you. They said no. So in all the issues, and you cannot force government to sign a draft 2022 June 2022 agreement when we have experience that what you drafted in 2009, which the Yar'Adua administration, succeeded by the Jonathan administration, could not sign under duress in a situation like this just to make school start, were not matters which ought to have been signed. It couldn't be implemented even under the Jonathan administration. There was the memorandum of action, understanding, on variation in the 2022. It was attended to, and that is what led to the release of about 200 billion, which the 130 billion, which we are saying account for this one, and they say sign agreement. Now coming back to the question of having an additional unions in a university or in an environment where it's already an existing union. Our answer is this: where no person First, there is freedom of association. But when you belong to an association like the Academic Staff Union, and they expel you, or you don't agree with their principles, and those who don't agree with their principles, they excommunicate them. Those persons cannot stay without having a union of their own, number one. Number two, there is under the law the right of the minister to regroup unions within a particular work environment, like the academic staff. Don't forget, when you recall the history of unionism in the universities, all the staff were all together before you now had NASU, non-academic staff union. Okay. They were non-academic staff union. No, they were also NASU and ASU were there before we now had the one of technologists. Yes. Is that not correct? Yes. They are still there. Yes. These are all within the academic staff union. Now, when ASU declares strike, medical doctors, medical and dental practitioners are bound to join them because there are academic staff. But there is a peculiarity in the profession and in the practice of medicine that you are bound to serve life first before anything. And the situation where before a life is involved, because you are a member of ASU as a medical doctor and teaching students, you are bound to obey and walk away. The medical and dental practitioners say, look, no, it is against our hypocritical oath. It is against the interest. It is against what we believe in. We are professionals, so we do not want to belong to academic staff union. We now want to have our own union. And then there are a group of persons led by my brother, Congress of Nigerian University Academics. They said they do not agree with certain principles of ASU, and most of them were excommunicated by ASU, and they cannot stay without a union. And so they approached since 2019. So this registration of these bodies is not a question that the federal government just decided and took up in a week's time in the course of this case. It had been there. And there are other professions that are coming up. The engineers say, look, they are professionals. They don't want to be tied to the academic staff decisions. When they want to go on strike or take a decision, they will want to do it as professionals. There are others, accountants, there are others, lawyers, who are also coming up with this thing that, look, yes, we're in a work environment, but we don't want to be bound by one association. If academic staff union wants to sign up, if we, lawyers or doctors, want to go on strike, we know that we are the people who are withdrawing our services and not shutting down the entire university. So the federal government is within its right to establish two new and more unions within the academic environment. Look at the Trade Dispute Act, the Trade Union Act, the Trade Union Essential Services Act, and even the International Labour Organization, the ILO Convention. It allows this. It allows regrouping within the union, within the work environment.
All right, at this point in time, we'll take a short break. When we return, the phone lines will be open. There will be more on developing education in Nigeria, and then you can get to be part of the discussion in the studio. Stay with us on NTA Tuesday Lab. We'll be back shortly.
The 157-kilometer Lagos-Ibadan Railway is the first double-track standard gauge railway to be built in West Africa. The Mobolaji Johnson train station is a masterpiece, an infrastructure that is gradually becoming an iconic building in Lagos State. The modern facilities put the station on a world map of train stations. Likewise, other new train stations across the country built to world-class standards. The train and its convenience is indeed an admirable effort, with commendations from Nigerians.
This is a station that we have to commend the federal government for putting a beautiful face, empowering us in Lagos State, not only in economic and political arena.
I can say that I'm really impressed with the infrastructures in place. Kudos to the Minister of Transportation. Kudos to the federal government.
Truly, good things are coming out of Nigeria, and the federal government is deserving of all the applause.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying with us. On this segment, we open the phone lines, means you can get to be part of the discussion in the studio. And we say this every Tuesday. We remind you of the procedure. If you're calling in tonight and your call gets through, do us a favor, turn down the volume of your TV set. That's the way to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And we also like to encourage you to go straight to the point, keep it short and simple. And of course, we advise for you not to spend too much time on greetings. A simple hello, mere hello is fine. You might not have the luxury of having uninterrupted service. So we encourage you to go straight to the point so others can also get their views on. All right. As we await the calls, we start off with another of our reports, this time from Ebonyi. Chinasa John reporting.
When the leadership of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, announced the commencement of an industrial action on 14th February 2022, little did students know that their lecture halls will still be empty 8 months after. This situation has left students wondering what their fate is, especially in view of the stalemate often experienced after each meeting with government representatives.
We are not happy as Nigerian students. We're not happy with the situation. We're not happy how the whole thing is going.
The brainwaves of majority of students have declined. The psychological trauma, the emotional trauma, the delay in graduation is not funny both to students and the parents.
Although Ebonyi State University is one of the few universities in Nigeria where academic activities are ongoing, Professor Chigozie Ogbu, the Vice Chancellor, believes that the future of Nigerian students should remain paramount in any decision or action concerning education.
So we in getting into the issue of Ebonyi State University, we all believe in what ASU is asking for because it's for the good of the nation. For the state universities, it's a survival thing that we try to keep students on. The federal universities will receive things for and salaries at that time when they finish. If a state university goes on strike, the students are gone.
For other respondents, some of the issues which the reoccurring strike has brought to the table is the need for government to reappraise the implications of education being on the concurrent list. This, they say, will make the running of educational institutions less financially burdensome for one level of government, which in turn will promote autonomy and weaken unionism, which is the bane of tertiary institutions in Nigeria.
And I join voice to encourage the political class to look at their demands. When I encourage them, that because of our students that have suffered so much, go back to class.
The justification of the strike may be generating mixed feelings at different quarters, but one thing that is paramount, according to respondents, is the need for a compromise from both parties in the interest of students and for the restoration of the past glory of public universities in Nigeria, hitherto seen in the 60s as the best in West Africa.
And from there we go on to Rivers, where we have this other report by Kingsley Amajiri.
8 months into the current ASU strike, the issue of welfare of its members, infrastructural development and reforms to bring Nigerian universities to world-class standards have remained issues requiring amicable resolution.
The government should shift its grants and pay them for those 6-7 months. For the fact that they've been at home, I want to state that no lecturer is idle. Most of them are at home are still attending to students. Most of them are still doing online lectures with students.
What are the lecturers asking for? Does it resolve the issues? Yeah, because we cannot be going back and forth every time. It does not depend on what the federal government wants to do. Let them look at it critically and see what are the issues that the lecturers have put on the table. How best do we think that we can solve this problem permanently?
While the government has made a number of concessions with latest effort by the National Assembly to resolve lingering issues, the registration of 2 new academic bodies to some would have implications.
Who will be members of those institutions? We have ASU. We belong to ASU. Except that we employ new people and tell them go and join the one we have registered. So ASU is still on course.
They are like people that have come to betray the other body who are rightly fighting for the betterment of the Nigerian universities. So I think that them balkanizing is not helping the economy and also the educational sector.
It's really heartbroken, and the parents also they are really feeling bad.
With the strike, it's just actually drawing my plans backwards. So I just had to go back to my business and learn more skills.
It will lead them to a lot of social vices.
Drawing from past experiences where promises are reneged, there are calls on those seeking elective offices to make issues of education development a public policy discourse for the upcoming campaigns. This, to analysts, would help the electorate make informed decisions on the right choice of leadership in the upcoming elections. In Port Harcourt, Kingsley Amachiri.
All right, we have our first caller on the line tonight. Ololade calling in from Kwara. Hello.
Hello. Good evening. I'm Ololade from Kwara. Yes, what I want to say this evening is just about the strike, and it's so disturbing to the extent that many people have accused many reasons to it on their own part. What I want to say is just that the most part
Doesn't look like we still have Ololade on the line.
is not into amicable solution. So that people can go back to school. It's not a good omen for the country that is considered to be a leading country in Africa to have this type of problem. Students be at home for 8 months. On the part of ASU, they cannot have everything on all their requests. It cannot be met at the same time. On the part of the government, they have to show concern that they are actually concerned about the welfare of these children too, and the plight of the children. Because the matter of the 2 elephants is the girls that will suffer. These children too, we want them to be patriotic to their country. There's no way they can be patriotic when you enter for a course of 4 years and you spend 8 years or 7 years. It's not fair. I'm appealing to the both parties to please embrace peace and let these people go back to school. Thank you. I'm Ololade from Kwara. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, back in the studio, let's just clarify this point. Dr. Aminu Abdullahi Isiaku, it's been suggested, particularly in our last report, one of the respondents said KUNUA doesn't have any members except you employ new lecturers and deploy them and ask them to join KUNUA. Is that true?
Absolutely, that's not true at all. Perhaps he doesn't know the wave of lecturers that are dropping out of ASU and joining KUNUA. This also shows that many lecturers had wanted another breath of fresh air, which KUNUA is now providing with our coming on board. And the registration in itself is going to add value to the entire system, because it will provide an opportunity for alternative voices to now come in and contribute to the lingering debate of how best do we develop our educational systems in Nigeria, which has been so far not been properly taken care of by the single and monopolist voice of ASU, that has now landed our universities into more state of devastation by these lingering strikes all the time. If I can take you back to the issue at hand, why is all this strike happening? The issue of infrastructure and revitalization. In fact, even governments, I will blame the federal government for not doing more to coordinate the many infrastructural development that is actually taking place in Nigerian universities, because a lot has been taking place. Almost every ministry in the federal government, departments and parastatals have one thing or the other to do in Nigerian university. For example, FEMA has been doing internal roads in various campuses in Nigerian universities. ASU will never count that as a revitalization. They will never tell anybody that such projects are actually taking place. The Ministry of Power is doing a lot of solar power projects in Nigerian university. ASU has never counted that as part of revitalization, part of infrastructure deployment to develop education in Nigerian universities. There are lots like that. NNPC is establishing centers of excellence in Nigerian universities. CBN has established a lot of centers of excellence in Nigerian universities. So there are lots of agencies. Federal government do not even do this a lot to coordinate, but a lot has been happening. So in Konwa, our fundamental difference with ASU is that we are here to now identify all these projects, all these efforts, and count them as part of efforts by government that will count as far as the revitalization demands are concerned. But all ASU wants is how many more billions that government will now give to the system. Those are the only things that will count for revitalization, but that's not the case. So these issues, these developments are actually taking place. But the question is, why will ASU ignore many of these subtle efforts by government and pretend as if nothing is going on in the system that will benefit the system? So let's just declare strike and sink the system more down.
Okay, back to the phone lines. We have Adini calling in. Adini, I believe, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
This is Adini from Washington State. Hello.
Go right ahead, Adini.
Okay. Please, I just want to use this opportunity to appeal to the both parties, the federal government and the ASU, because it is anytime I hear the news that ASU want to embark on strike, I always feel so sad. Because to me, I believe that this kind of personal interest attached to this issue. Because if not, I believe that what ASU presented to the federal government, I believe they should have at least taken into consideration to look at it in one angle, that what will be the benefits of the students. I think that is the number one that they should look into before any other thing. And of course, the demand of the ASU can never be met. I mean, maybe the part of it, federal government should at least look into it. Then the creation of another union, which is Konwa and the other union, I couldn't remember. I think I'm not against the fact that they should create another union, but not in this kind of situation. They should maybe after the issue of ASU has been settled, then they can come and say, okay, let's form another union. Then okay, let's register another union. Not this kind of situation. Because if ASU agree, if they agree with the ASU proposal now, what of it this Konwa will come up with another proposal later in the future? What will not be the future of the students? Nice.
Thank you very much, Adoni from Oshu. Let's go back to Professor Nuhu Yakub at this point in time. Hopefully, the lines are quite clear now. Prof, now, if we were to put aside the disruptions to the academic calendar, and other such matters, given your experience, what's the way forward ensuring quality education functional for this country?
I think it's very straightforward. What is required is adequate funding. With due respect to the speakers who are with you there on the other side of the studio, I think that the real issue has not been addressed. That is, how much of the annual budget is being given to education as compared to the recommendation of UNESCO that has enjoined many countries. There are countries in Africa and also all over the world that even if they cannot meet the minimum quantum, they try as much as possible to go very close to it. Every year, if you look into the past budgets of this country in the past 10 years, I don't think the best time we have ever gotten as far as 9% will only be counted as once or twice in this country. And the government is also not helping matters. Look at what is even going on now. The existing federal universities or public universities cannot be adequately funded. Yet, from the National Assembly, you hear either one senator or one member of the House of Representatives proposing a new university for their own, senatorial or federal, electoral, the federal units that they represent in their own state. And, before you know it also, specialized University of Transportation, University of Army University, when you have NTA that is also offering, graduate and undergraduate and postgraduate, programs. There is actually a need for us to have, what I would call consistent, policy of developing, the education sector in this country. I made reference to the point earlier that what we are even having now at the primary and secondary school levels are things that we have to be bothered about, because clearly the base is not even being taken care of. And then as I said also earlier, is looking at what is happening at those levels, and they are also trying to guide against this thing getting erosion into the federal or the tertiary levels. So for me, I think if you want to actually solve the problem, let us, call, if you like, you can organize, special education, conference or whatever, and, bring in, all the stakeholders, and task everybody to actually come up with recommendations that will arrest the decline or disruptions going on in the education sector. Having said this, let me quickly also respond to the point made by Senator Ethan. I don't think you are actually as a lawyer you are actually putting the issues very correctly. Because if you look at the Sunday, Sunday edition of the Punch, this last Sunday, there is, the letter that there was the reference made by, the president of the NLC, that the setting up in fact, what is even amazing is that people will be saying, it is your freedom to go and set up a union. But what is being seen is that government is actually dictating or directing the formation of CONWA and the other union of the medical academics. That is not the way. The UNESCO, the ILO, the fundamental principle, sections 87 and 98 clearly stated that where in a particular labor front you already have a union, setting up another one is just like creating a condition for recklessness. What is it that the CONWA people are demanding? Even I'm even surprised to hear that somebody is saying, they were edged out of ASU. What is the evidence? You can't just make a very, porous statement without evidence. And when we would also talk about, one of the things that ASU has also, stressed this current crisis is the fact that government for such a long time refused to set up visitation panels to the campuses. They demanded that visitation panels should be set up after every 5 years to see what is going on in the university. Can you, I mean, are they prepared to accept the fact that this, when ASU encourage government to set up this visitation panels, the government set up this visitation panel up till now for more than 2 or 3 years now, the report has not come out. When I was vice chancellor, I left office. With the first second year I left office, there was visitation panel to my campus. In fact, I was in the US as a Fulbright fellow when the visitation panel that came to University of Abuja called on me to come back from the US to come and testify before them. And I said, well, if they could sponsor me, I will come, but I didn't have the resources. And they also said they didn't have resources. But they demanded that you write, my recollections of how I led the University of Abuja. And I wrote it, sent it to them, which they accepted. On the basis of that, they made recommendation to government. I was given, the white paper actually exonerated me for any financial, recklessness. And when they talking about, ASU, the government, offered 600 billion or 300 billion naira as part of the demand for the renovation of the universities. Who is the one spending it? Is it the ASU leadership? This is a question that, it's meant to look as if, you say like, one Loretta Onoche will say, the money is taken there and they embezzle it. That is rubbish. Who are the people handling this money? Is it the management of the HE University or the union members? Look, I think we have come to a point in this country where people should not allow themselves to look very stupid when it comes to public issues. We all have, one destiny for this country, which is that this country must develop. You cannot develop this country the way we are going because nobody is giving attention to education, which is very, as Professor Remadu said it earlier, without education you cannot, actually advance. So is it in this kind of, lack of attention to education that somebody will say, oh, I'm going to, remove 100 people from poverty in this country? How are you going to do it? Is it by merely saying it? No, I think, it is time for us in this country to sit down and address issues very responsibly, no matter your position in society and no matter the advantage you have. What we are witnessing in this country is very sharp division between those who have and those who don't have. And those who have do not care what is the problem of those who do not have. And that's why people who are, especially even in the positions to make policies, they send their children out of this country to go and to receive education elsewhere because they cannot, they have seen that the education system in this country is going down the drains. Some of us are very patriotic. My education until, the postgraduate level the levels I went through were in this country. And when I went out, either to Canada for my master's degree or to United Kingdom for my doctorate, I went with solid education, background. And I did very well. To the extent that I got my certificate, came back, I became very relevant to the system up till the time I retired last year. So let us try to, as much as possible, come back to the basics. It's not more question of politics now. It's a question of addressing issues. Because this country, when you say you are a leader, over 200 million people, you must also be able to account for whatever you do to those 200 million people. You are not doing it because of
at this
the
point. Would quickly recall that Professor Remadu was making a point, and we suffered another of those glitches. So let's quickly get back to him at this point, and also to take into account the question we put across about how to improve on the educational system in the current circumstances. Professor Remadu.
And my former Vice Chancellor has said it all. The basics, the primary level is the foundation. I knew the kind of background I had at primary school level. I knew the kind I had at secondary level. All my education in this country, I had all my education in this country. under the likes of Professor William Okefiuzaga, Professor Francis Okafor, Professor J.A.T. Ojo. These are crack academics. And I served as a head advisor under Professor Buhu. A well-grounded academic, somebody with good grounding. It does not mean we don't have it here. We have it. In fact, a few days ago, on 6th of this month, I was surprised. One of my daughters, academic daughters, wrote me. I never knew there was something called the Teacher's Day. She wrote me to thank me how I groomed them at the University of Abuja, her senior sister and herself. The kind of education I received, that is what I have been giving her across this country. The ones I trained, they are now at leadership level. In fact, one of my academic daughters is the deputy governor of the central bank now, Aisha. At Convergence University, all the revolution and the things I did there, well, 5 of them now are professors. Functional education is the answer. We have it. The quality of a graduate depends on the quality of his lecturer, his or her lecturer. So, what ASU is demanding?
Where, Prof, the quality of you just mentioned something about the quality here. Now, what quality can you ascribe to a system that for 8 months has not been working?
Yes, sir. For 8 months, not working. Everybody was affected. My 2 sons were at home. I knew what we have been. Several parents dissented. Most of the lecturers have died. It will annoy you to hear that at University of Calabar, more than 37 people have passed away. Here and there, if you see university lecturers now, they look like lizards. I'm a little bit okay because I'm on sabbatical. An academic wants to stop. Young academics, they do not develop. You develop through teaching and research. Once those things are cut off, everything is destroyed. May I use this opportunity to urge the federal government of Nigeria. Please and please and please, let us stop playing politics with the university education and as a matter of fact, all levels of education. Senator Enam is just playing politics, and with the union people is saying is forming just to impress the president. They are deceiving the leadership of the country. Anything that could be done should be done very fast. And get this. In fact, this week, and get us working again. Any nation with its education destroyed, that country is destroyed. Is put at a stop. Let me be frank with you.
But thank you, Prof. Just 2 issues. Senator Enam would respond to issues raised by Professor Nuri Yakub and the latest one raised by Professor Remadu. But just before you do that, let me return to Dr. Isiaku. Again, we would seek clarification for this. Did Konwa start as a result of this strike?
Not at all. Konwa, like I told you, has been there since 2018 formally, when we submitted our application for registration. But even before that formal submission of application as a trade union, movements out of ASU, regrouping outside ASU, within like minds, especially within the ranks of young academics, have been going on for quite some time.
All right. Maybe this, Senator Enam is a lawyer here. Maybe he would say this is a leading question, but did the federal government put you up to that?
Not at all.
All right.
Okay. We approached the federal government because we wanted freedom.
Okay.
We wanted our own voice to be heard. If I can just respond to the respected Professor Nuhu, what he said regarding Nigerian students going abroad to study. I studied abroad. both my master's and my PhD, fully sponsored by Nigerian government. And I chose to come back to Nigeria to teach. What ASU is not telling Nigerians is what government is doing to support Nigerian lecturers to also study abroad. So all this thing about because the children of the rich, children of government are going outside to study, lecturers to Nigerian government too is sponsoring Nigerian lecturers to study abroad every year in every university through grants by TED Fund. Why are they not telling Nigerians this one?
Senator, and just before you come in, we have Umar from Brendan Kebi, who's been on the line for quite some time. Umar, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still there.
Right, just go ahead. Right.
Thank you. My name is Umar, calling from Brendan Kebi. I'm not conversant with the law aspect. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not conversant with technicalities of court of appeal and court, the industrial court. But one thing is clear, that this strike, it does not benefit anybody, even the ASU themselves. They are suffering. And instead of minister to do the right thing, to advise Mr. President to do the right thing, to take ASU on the negotiating table, we end up in dividing splitting the union into three. He even said more are coming, more unions are coming into the system. Now my question is that with the creation of more union, into the system solve the problem, how the creation of more union solve educational problem? If it does not solve the problem, then why the creation? Why the creation of those unions? If it solves the problem, then how? That is my question. Thank you, Mr. Siro.
Okay, thank you. Now for Senator Enang, who will respond to those issues that were raised earlier. Yes.
Thank you very much. Let me just take exception with respect to some words that were used by Professor Nuhu. I respect him, but the words that he's used are below him. And the word that were used by the other prof from the University of Omudike, who is on sabbatical, they were all below, and they're indecent. I want to say that they're indecent. Now, let me respond to the question of the budget, how much of budget is given to education. Now, what do you call budget that is given to education? He says it wants to be 26%. What people don't understand is that it is the total budget of the tiers of government in the entire country that is given to education that is the matter, not how much the federal government budgets through the Federal Ministry of Education. Now, the state governments have universities and they budget for it. That goes to education. The universities, the state governments has College of Education, primary schools, secondary schools, all that goes to education. The federal government has universities, polytechnics, College of Education, and specialized institutions. All that is budget that goes to education. Now, what again are the other sources of budgeting to field education? My brother, Professor Mohammed, right, has mentioned some of the, sorry? Dr. Aminu, I apologize. Dr. Aminu has mentioned that TED Fund and then CBN. If you go to every university, you will see CBN intervention. Under Sanusi, His Royal Highness now, and the Sanusi as Governor of Central Bank, you will see just 20 billion. Amadou Bello, 18 billion. So many of that. All those interventions were all interventions by the central bank in the universities. Now you come to the National Communications Commission. They intervene in buildings and the IT infrastructure in this ego. Now you go to TED Fund. They also budget for it. Come to the Federal Ministry of Works. Under Fashola, President Buhari's directive, under President Buhari's directive, His Excellency, the Minister Fashola, makes provision for most universities in the country that they do between 4 and 5 kilometers of internal road network. That is dual. If it is dual, by the time they make 5 or 4 lane, by the time they make 5 kilometers, that's 20 kilometers in most of the universities. That is Federal Ministry of Works attending to budget of education in the universities. Now you come to the solar infrastructure. They have connected so many universities that there are no more. You rarely will have a situation where the universities have challenge of power because they have been connected. These are all interventions and budgetary provisions which are made in the education sector. You will not find this in the budget of the Ministry of Education. Come to the Niger Delta. You will go to the University of Uyo, the University of Port Harcourt, the Niger Delta University. You will see what the Niger Delta Development Commission has built in each of these students' hostels, the classrooms. 4 months ago or 5 months ago, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari commissioned, I think, a 1,000 bed residence hostel at the University of Uyo, built by the Niger Delta Development Commission. 2 years ago, the president commissioned in the University of Calabar a hostel of the same nature, built by the Niger Delta Development Commission, and it is happening in all others. So these are all interventions which are made in the education sector, which goes for revitalization. I think the whole of this matter is, whenever you give money to institutions and then you ask that, before I give you another money, retire what you did with the others in accordance with the standard financial management practices, it becomes a problem. There must be a strike because nobody wants to account for money that was earned. All they say is keep giving. I heard my friend Professor Nuhu, my good friend, when he said that when the money is given, is it who spends it? Is it the university? Is it ASU or something? Whether the money should be given to ASU or something. ASU is a body of academic staff. It's a union of academic staff. The management is headed by the vice chancellor, led by the chancellor and the pro-chancellor for the academic, and so on. These are the people, the university council, which have their own budget, and in their budget, they submit the budget to the Ministry of Education. The Ministry of Education will submit the budget in total to the Budget Office of the Federation. The Budget Office of the Federation will total all. Know what education needs, know what works needs, know what power needs, know what agriculture needs, and take it to the Federal Executive Council. The President will lay it before the National Assembly. It is not every money that is available in the country that will be spent in every section, in one sector. Otherwise, the country can't run. And let's even go to the question where they have raised the question. The question they have raised is that seems to be that academic staff union have issue in not going back to work. Let me say that the academic staff union is registered under the Trade Union Act, and they are bound by the provisions of the Trade Union Act. When they have issues, the dispute, it is regulated by the Trade Disputes Act. When the dispute involves essential services, it is regulated by the Trade Disputes Act and the Trade Dispute Essential Services Act. If they are registered by the Trade Union Act, and the Trade Disputes Act provides that whenever there is a dispute and it is submitted to it is referred to the National Industrial Court, that dispute must cease. How many times, how long, and how intransigent with respect can a staff union be? Can a party to a suit be that the law which establishes you says if this happens, you have to call off strike? If you didn't call off the strike, we went to court. You defended. You even filed a counter. Another ASERAP sought to join. You made application before that court. That court said, look, the matter is pending before us, but go back to work as an interim, as an interlocutory order while we got this. You refuse. Not just refusing, you go out and say, we cannot obey, we cannot listen to you. You go to the Court of Appeal, you seek the stay of execution. And having sought the stay of execution on their own, and I said for the third time, willingly and voluntarily, their counsel, being Academic Staff Union, withdrew the application for stay of the execution. And they told the panel, the Court of Appeal panel, that issues will be resolved, that they are withdrawing the application for stay of execution. The application was struck out, which means that you had sought that and indicated that you will obey the court order. On your own, you stand the nation out. And the court said, well, and we on our part say, look, we've joined issues. The matter should just be ruled that they can't withdraw and it should be dismissed. But the court said, look, they have a right to withdraw. If they withdraw, that means they want to obey the court order. If you don't obey the court order and then you are not opening the schools, what would the employer do? Don't call it government, call it the employer. Because the different universities are the employers of the members of the Academic Staff Union. The Academic Staff Union are made of lawyers. They are made of they have faculties of law. They have professors who are senior advocates. Are they advising them that they can go on disobeying the court order and the situation can be? Let them know. And I say it again, let it be known that there is a limit to the extent that the employer can take the illegal actions of the employee, because the employer is entitled to protect his business. The employer is entitled to protect other people who are working in that environment. The non-academic staff union are not on strike, but the action of ASU is affecting their functioning. The technologists are not on strike, but the action of ASU. The students are not on strike, but the action of ASU, academic staff, is affecting academic activities. Will the employer not also think that, let me put the interest of academic staff union aside and consider the interest of the non-academic staff union, consider above all the interest of the students, and take a decision?
Okay, well, the final part of what we are discussing tonight will be moving forward, how to get back students, and the challenge when, because Nigerians believe that academic staff activities will resume soon. When academic activities begin, how will the students and the teaching staff cope, having lost 8 months?
The students can never recover from this loss in their lives. They can never recover, honestly speaking. But what should be done going forward is to allow CONWA and the rest of the other unions that have now been registered to have their own voices heard in terms of being more progressive elements within the academic ranks. The radical approach by the strike veterans in ASU will always want to be alone in the space so as to continue with their attitude of strike. And we now thank God that CONWA is here to salvage the system by not supporting these reckless acts of embarking on strike all the time. And also, we will not support what ASU is not telling Nigerians in terms of efforts done by government, because those efforts should count. All the ICT centers that NIDA, yes, all the ICT centers that NIDA is doing in the system. All the interventions by NOTAP in the Federal Ministry of Science and Technology should be counted by ASU. They should not be concealing these facts and allow students to know as if nothing is happening in the universities. So it is better to go on strike. Strike destroys the system in its entirety. So when ASU is saying Nigerian students prefer to go to Ghana, Togo and the rest of these African countries to study, it is not because those universities have even 1/10 of what we are having in terms of infrastructure and quality of the faculty in Nigeria. But the only thing those universities have is that they have stability of academic calendar. You are sure that if you go to Ghana, you will graduate within your 3 or 4 years. But you can never be sure in Nigeria because the strike veterans that are in ASU will always go on strike over any issue that even does not qualify it to go on strike. That is the position of CONUA.
Please let me just add just one issue. On this question of strike and the question of payment of the salaries of workers while on strike, I will not go to the question of the payment of the salaries, but I want to say that members of the academic staff union, the executive, they are not suffering from this matter because they are not depending on their salaries from the universities. They are depending on the check-off dues that have been deducted and given to them, and they are using the money of the union. So they are not feeling what the other lecturers are feeling. And I want to urge that Konwa and Namdet, now that you are here and you've been given authority, when are you going back? Are you on strike? If you are not on strike, why are the universities not why haven't you started the teaching? Yeah. And then let us know your members. And then the things start, the university starts. Because we can't be held up by strike professionals. Or strike agents.
I think I've already answered it. Yes.
I apologize.
Before you joined us, we had put that question to Dr. Aminu Abdullahi Isiaku, and he had said, yes, the question will still be asked over and over again. If CONUA has been recognized, why are they not back in class teaching?
In essence, technically we are back.
Right.
But you can only access your office, the classrooms, if management have opened those offices and classrooms, and also call the students back. But we are ready. Okay. Government knows we are ready. It is the other union that is not ready and do not appear to want to be ready because they want to remain in strike.
But let's link up again with Professor Nuhu Yakub. Oh, where? Okay. All right. So we're still dealing with these issues here. Hopefully, as we're winding down, we'll sort it out again, and we can have their closing comments. Right. And so we just a few minutes left. The Court of Appeal has spoken, and of course, we won't discountenance the fact that the Speaker of the House of Representatives has again risen to the situation and is into what has been described as very fruitful discussions with the President. And just about a day or two ago, we heard the ASU President himself acknowledging that something good might come out quite soon. But we always look ahead and we ask the questions. If academic activities do not resume within the week, what next?
Well, there are options in law, but we're working towards not getting to the legal option beyond here. Okay. But a court judgment is a court judgment, and the court does not act in vain. The court does not act in vain.
Okay.
And the court had stated all this. And of course, ASU normally goes to court. And if the court decides for them or against, it's wrong to say I'm not going to obey.
Then the other question, Senator Eran, would be, since the Speaker of the House has intervened and is holding discussions with the President, and it looks as if this whole issue would be cleared, Nigerians are saying, why didn't this come much earlier?
Well, the legislature, to my knowledge, they were on vacation. The normal annual vacation, number one. Number two, the matter was in court. Number three, every effort was being made by the executive to make sure that it was resolved, and the legislature was being carried along with it. And of course, it is not inappropriate for the legislature to intervene in the manner they have. After when they did, the Honourable Minister of Labour and Employment also appeared, to the extent that he had to appear, and then took leave when he had finished his presentation. But we believe that in all the efforts, what government wants is that the schools should resume and the students should go back to work, and that academic staff union should academic staff union should not act as if it is an opposition party, because the extent the academic staff union has gone, they have turned the strike into a political weapon. But the government is not yet in a position to deal with it as a political weapon. And I hope it won't get to the extent that it will be used as a political weapon. When they will come openly go and campaign against the government, against the political party, and declare allegiance to another political party. So the public should see this not just as a strike of a trade union, against employers, or against employers, but as a political weapon that is being deployed by academic staff union who has affiliated themselves to one political party or the other. I take responsibility. I'm very measured what I say. But there are video in circulation where the president of ASU stood up and said, vote out this government. And this is what they are using and stretching so that they can use it. The other political parties can use it against this government in an election. When one of the political parties launched their campaign some days ago, it was one of the issues that were raised, and some of these officers of the union were party to those campaigns. And to the extent we will be very responsive and responsible, but please let academic staff union know the extent to which they can go. They should not act as a government. They should act as employee, not employers.
All right. Well, it's that time when we must wind down this discussion, and it's days fast spent. So we just like to extend our thanks to Professor Nuhu Yakub, former Vice Chancellor of the University of Abuja, and also Sokoto State University. Prof, thank you for availing us of your experience and your thoughts on this matter. We thank you for coming. Oh well, we're still dealing with these issues. And let me also extend my thanks to Professor Sebastian Uremadu, Professor of Banking and Finance, Michael Okwara University, Umudike, Abia State, who is currently on sabbatical leave with the Akwa Ibom State University, Uyo. Thank you for being part of this discussion. Oh well, at least we can see a picture there. Thank you so much. And let me also extend thanks to Dr. Aminu Abdullahi Isiaku, Senior Lecturer, Department of Geology, Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, who is Chairman of the Congress of University Academics, KUNUA.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Senator Itai Nang, UFR, Emeritus Advisor to the President of the National Assembly Senate, and Niger Delta, and part of the federal government's team on this academic union case. We thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, and I believe that soon it will end in praise and the schools will be reopened in the interest of the students, and the court judgment will be obeyed.
All right. And that's our program tonight. We thank you for watching. Next week we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stover. Continue to stay safe.